Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live. Happy New Year, everybody. Didn't take the show on yesterday. Figured a lot of people with the holiday may not be watching, so pushed the show to Tuesday. Last week of the regular season, most of you, your fantasy seasons are over, but got plenty of football to talk about. Hopefully you'll hang with me throughout the offseason, and we'll get an offseason schedule going. We'll have at least a couple shows a week for sure. Talk about a lot of offseason topics. Get ready for some future drafting. But hey, any questions? Yeah, get ready for the NFL draft, all that good stuff. All right, let's see. Before we get rolling here, see Julie's in the house. What you got here, Julie? Happy New Year to you as well. You made the championship game, but hobbling along. You learned. So this must have been a Sunday comment. Maybe put this comment early. Most are okay. Oh, so you put a start-sit question in here. Oh man, I wish you would have gone to the stream. That was the start. So sorry, I didn't get that, but that was in the Monday stream. Okay. Well, I hope you won your game, Julie. All right. Let's start out with the week winners. CD Lamb. We knew that facing Detroit was an easy matchup. They don't defend the pass well. And Aiden Hutchinson had a game rushing the passer for sure. But again, we've seen since the bye week, Dallas's best offensive move was putting Lamb where he could best attack defenses. Sometimes it's on the outside, sometimes it's in the slot, sometimes it's in motion. They have found a way to weaponize him. Happy New Year, Randy. And so anyway, Lamb goes off in this game. 17 targets, goes over 200 yards. Now we had that crazy busted 90-something yard touchdown. Great play, right? Dak extends the play. It looked like it was going to be a sack. It looks like the Cowboys were going to lose possession with a punt. And then all of a sudden he breaks contain and CDs downfield. And all of a sudden, boom, almost hit the over prop on yardage in one play. But anyway, 227 yards. So that yardage wasn't even half of his yardage production. That's what a game he had. But anyway, if he had CD Lamb, now where do you put him next year, right? Well, Jamar Chase wasn't healthy this year. His quarterback wasn't healthy. Justin Jefferson obviously missed a ton of time. We don't know if Kirk Cousins will be back. Not that it matters. He's Justin Jefferson, right? And we still have Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill got nicked up a lot this year. But obviously the numbers are the numbers. Based on points per game, CD Lamb and Tyreek were right 1-2. Like I think they were 1/10 of a point away from each other. So at this point, I was talking yesterday on a different show. It was like, how do you go about framing CD Lamb with this big three? Right now, I was saying outside of it. I was saying just outside, put the three and then put CD Lamb. I don't know. Right now, it's like, I can't make a case against CD Lamb. I think CD Lamb will be right with those other three receivers. Take your pick, whichever one you like the best. And right now, that's how I framed it. Oh, so good, Julie, you're back here. So, you did win. Yes. All right. Sounds good. Happy New Year to you as well. I'm so happy you won. Great. All right. Lamar Jackson. Wow. 5 touchdowns. We didn't see that one necessarily coming. He's had a great year. But remember, as great as his year's been from an NFL standpoint, from fantasy, it's a lot of 1 and 2 touchdown games, right? So there hasn't been those high ceiling games. Well, he had one here. He goes over 300 yards on 18 completions, 21 attempts. Miami had no answers. At all. Obviously, the tight end, Isaiah Likely, a couple touchdowns himself. Those were his only catches of the game. Comes through. Zay Flowers, the long touchdown. So it was a few great plays, but Lamar Jackson anyway comes through. So if you did, now I had Lamar in start-sit questions. There were 2 quarterback leagues, and people were giving me 3 quarterbacks listed. And I told people in that start-sit stream, I said, look, I know Lamar hasn't had the greatest statistical season for fantasy, but you can't sit him here. I go, because there is a world where his floor is high, but his ceiling could go as well. It was the ceiling game, but I just didn't think in good conscience you sit Lamar Jackson. I think, we want to get cute. We want to, we obviously want to win our championship games, but I think we get cute sometimes, and we can't really do that. We have to sometimes just say, all right, I'm taking the safe play, but he has upside too. All right, Devontae Adams, what a weird season, right? There were games where he hardly had any production, and then there are games like this where he gets 21 targets, obviously going over 100 yards. He only caught a little more than half his targets, 13 to 21, but he scored twice. And again, he was a player that people were worried about because there were such down games, and Aiden O'Connell's problematic. But again, this is a case where I told people last week, Devontae Adams had 1 catch for 4 yards, right? And I said, but he had 6 targets. And they didn't pass the ball after the first quarter. and it was against the Chiefs. And I'm like, you know what? At least he had 6 targets in that game. So I go, you don't sit Devontae Adams. And of course, he came through with a beautiful game. So hopefully you started him, got that. Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, wow. So he has the shoulder injury, right? And I'm very concerned about him because this is a guy that twice in the same calendar year, he's had shoulder surgery. After the Super Bowl, he had shoulder surgery. His running style is not conducive to his body type. And so we're very concerned about how he'll hold up. Well, he held up just fine. He had 18 carries, which was normal, but he ran for 130 yards. And then the 7 catches on 7 targets may not have produced much yardage, 35, but he scored a touchdown. 165 yards and a touchdown later. Isaiah Pacheco was a week winner. DJ Moore. You know, I'm currently making a list right now of the players I had hit on, the players I missed on, and I'm going to find out why the misses were the misses, why the hits were the hits. Always try to improve at this thing, right? Well, DJ Moore, I never wavered in that one. He had that spell with Tyson Bagent. He was a floor play during that. At least he had a floor. It wasn't like some of these other guys that had like 2 catches. Usually he had like a 7 to 9 point floor. But when Justin Fields got through the first couple of weeks of the season, DJ Moore has been obviously a great player. I believe points per game on the season, he's in the top 8 receivers. And this is the player I knew he always was. He never had anything remotely resembling a quarterback. Justin Fields may not be a world beater, but Justin Fields is way better than anything he ever had. And he's willing to throw the ball deep. What a dime that Justin Fields threw to Moore in the end zone early in that game. Anyway, Moore goes for 159 and a touchdown, catches 9 passes, running it back. I don't know what the Bears are going to do with their offseason. I have no idea. Obviously, the fans want Fields back. There's economics in this as well. Fields will be going in his 5th year. It'll be how to deal with the contract going forward. I don't know what they'll do, and I don't pretend to know. But I do know that if they don't like butch the quarterback decision and if they draft somebody, he's not like horrific. DJ Moore, so he's not going to be in that group of, Jefferson, Chase, Lamb, and Tyreek. He's not going to be in that. He'll be right behind them, just behind them. DJ Moore has been a star. He is a star. He just had, he had 1,150 yards seasons out of 4 with no quarterback play. That's like Garrett Wilson, right? All right. Garrett Wilson's another story too. We talk about him at a different point. James Conner. Beginning of the season wasn't great. His yards per carry were always good. Arizona just, no Kyler Murray hurt. And they weren't scoring many points, very problematic. But last 4 games he's played, James Conner has been money. And look, if people in start sit questions had very good options along with he was playing Philly. Philly had been pretty darn good against the run. And there were other scenarios where I may have said, you know what, it's kind of tough on Conner. Love the guy, love the way he's playing, but I was worried. Well, listen to what happened in that game. I'll talk about the game later. Arizona ran 76 plays. Philly ran like 49, 46. It was ball control. They ran it down Philly's throats. They passed it with ease. Conner, 26 carries for $128, scores a touchdown. Receiving just 1 catch for 5 yards, but he catches that one for a touchdown. What a one-hand catch that was. James Conner has been underused as a receiver this year. That was a very poor misuse of his talents. He should have been heavily used as a receiver because he was part of their answer all along. He did miss time, and I told you when you drafted him, I said, look, spend the 7th round pick on him, and at that point, don't worry about it. Just he's going to miss 4 games. And that's, I think, what he did. And I said, but then when you have him, and early in the season, he wasn't a running back when he wasn't. But on the season, again, this is all equals out. I think he's a top 12 or 14 points per game running back. He was number 9 in the prior 2 seasons. So he's pretty much the same guy we had. If you hear a bit of noise in the background, the every Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month, sirens going off. I don't know if it's that loud, but if you hear it, that's what it is. All right. Travis Etienne was a week winner. 16 carries, the usual. Not a big snap percentage. He didn't hit 70. I don't think he hit 70%. He was lower than that, again, like in the 60s, where it normally is. But I told people in this one, I said, look, they're playing Carolina. And I go, what we don't like about Etienne is the more carries he gets, the more chance he gets to break a big play. But the matchup was so good, you really couldn't sit him unless you had dynamic options. And he finally put up another 100-yard game, broke a long touchdown. So he scored twice. So he was there. And then won't spend much time like Kyron Williams. The guy's been gold. Every week he's gold. This time there's 3 touchdowns worth, 101 scrimmage yards. I can't keep singing Sean McVay's praises enough. I don't think anybody thought that much of Kyron Williams. Coming out of college, I liked him. And last year I had him on rosters, when Cam Akers was imploding and then he did nothing. And then obviously there's a Puka Nacua story that, he's going to break the rookie receiving record. I just can't tip my hat to Sean McVay enough. What he did with Cooper Kupp, what he did with Nacua, what he's done with Kyron Williams, just a genius. And I don't know how coaches can't copy what he's doing in terms of getting these receivers so easily open and just allowing them to win consistently. I mentioned with the running game, he mastered the idea of what defenses didn't defend well in this era of the NFL, and it's the duo downhill running scheme. And so McVay quickly figured that. I don't know how other coaches haven't. Now you got to have personnel sometimes to do that, so there's that. But McVay, it was an offensive line that was a little maligned going into the season. So the fact he was able to get them on board was great. A few more week winners. Jaden Reed played less than 40% of the snaps. He was injured coming in. He got hurt again. Didn't matter. 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was an if he starts it question because we knew the injury was real. And if he had other options, there was that. We did mention this on the Sirius show that Jordan Love, I pointed this out on the Friday and the Saturday show. I said, Jordan Love stunk against Minnesota the first time. But this is one of those rare occasions where it's a divisional opponent. He saw, and his coach, Matt LaFleur, saw what Minnesota did with the funky blitzes, with the funky drops in coverage. That not just film, but having played against that, I said Jordan Love has a tactical advantage here with him and his coach, in a rematch against his defense. And yep, he's 24-33. Oh man, 256 yards and 3 touchdowns. He ran in a fourth. So again, if you had the stones to start Jordan Love, he came through. Jordan Love, based on points per game. And now I know it's a year where a lot of quarterbacks didn't play. Okay, a lot of injuries. Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, he was a quarterback one. Like I said, I get it. But man, he really came out from those first few games of the season. And we were remiss to not mention Joe Flacco, right? Joe Flacco in points per game, and he's only played a few games. I get it, ultra small sample size. Quarterback 3, Joe Flacco, quarterback 3. I don't think he would have been that in his Super Bowl run that he had way ago get with the Ravens. Don't think that would happen. But wow, another 300-yard game, another 3 touchdowns. I won all my bets on Cleveland making the playoffs. I had a smaller amount on them winning the Super Bowl preseason. Obviously, all the injuries happen. It would be crazy if that. It's not going to cash, but it'd be crazy if it did. If Flacco went into Baltimore, his old stomping grounds, and he took them out, that would be funny. I'm not banking on it, and I'm kind of hoping DraftKings gives me a buyback option, because sometimes if maybe they win their first playoff game, sometimes you'll get it where you can get a percentage of your money back. Because I don't want to leave that bet out there. I'd rather take half the money back if I could. Anyway, neither here nor there. Tyrod Taylor, I gave him as a dart throw DFS play. He was 4,600 on DraftKings. I said, look, Tyrod Taylor, I don't know who's going to be the receiving option. Don't know who's going to get it done there. But Tyrod Taylor against the Rams will find a way. 319 yards and a touchdown, ran for 40 yards. A late scramble got him there, like 31-yard scramble. But that is cashing for DFS. He got the 3-point bonus. The 1 touchdown wasn't the greatest, but again, running for 40 yards offset that. But he would have been a great 4,600 option. Finally, let's finish up the week winners. Look, if you want the Steelers backs, you were really happy. Najee Harris, Seattle can't tackle. I don't know what it is. Seattle Seahawks cannot tackle. I don't get it. Najee Harris, though, 27 carries, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns. Hey, Najee Harris did great. Jaylen Warren was no slouch either. His 13 carries went for 75 yards, and he caught 23 yards worth of pass, and he scored. So if either of them, they both cashed. Interesting to see how they handle their backfield next year, but I think it's a win when they both play. All right, the Dream Crushers, Travis Kelce. I know he's been down. The matchup against Cincy could not have been better. And 3 catches, 16 yards, 4 targets. He's probably been hurt all year. He's aging. He's talked about it himself, how he's not the player he was, what the things he has to do differently to get rolling. He's still the tight end one of the season. He's tied with Sam Laporta, I believe. I think points. I think they're tied. But the second half of the season, again, we have to look at another year of aging. If he's healthy, that'll be a different ball game. But at some point, all things end. And I don't know if this is the end, but it doesn't look good. Randy, let's see. You changed your DFS lineup to Tyrod the moment I said on the radio. Nice. Fabulous. I'm so happy that worked out for you. Jahmyr Gibbs was a dream crusher. He got 15 carries, 43 yards. Wow. Not that it changed your fantasy fortunes, but there was a holding call, and it was a legit holding call. But he had a 37-yard run or something like that. That would have at least gotten him 80 yards. Maybe not 80, because I think he got some of that yardage. The holding penalty was like upfield a little bit, but that hurt. But he only had one catch, 0 yards. So he ends with 5.3 PPR points. Jahmyr Gibbs hurt a lot of people. Chris Olave hurt a lot of people. Playing Tampa, no Carlton Davis. Jamel Dean has been injured and off all year. Olave, 3 for 26, 6 targets. It didn't help that New Orleans had one of their rare leads on the road, and they were able to be more conservative. Jamal Williams got a bunch of carries because Kamara got hurt. Kamara hurt an ankle in that game. So Kamara, I don't put Kamara in the dream card because you can't control the injuries, right? Can't do much about that. Tony Pollard, oh, man. I mean, it's not much different than it was all year, right? But it was worse. 16 carries for 49. We kind of saw that coming. Detroit doesn't give up much. He had a couple, chunk runs that got him there. 1 catch, 0 yards. So again, 5.9 PPR points. Again, you probably kind of worried about it and saw it coming. I did tell some people to bench Pollard if they're given better options, but not good. And then James Cook, playing New England, we didn't like the matchup. Did not like the matchup. We've loved James Cook this year, but we didn't like the matchup at all. And New England's been pretty much lights out against the run. 16 for 48 was okay. His only reception lost 4 yards. So if that counted against you, it was 44 scrimmage yards and a catch, and that didn't get it done. Derrick Henry, well, I could say this. From a yardage standpoint, he did better against the Texans than he did last time. From a PPR standpoint, he did worse. And the last time they played, he had 20 touches, 10 yards. But he had 4 catches for 1 yard, I believe. So it gave him 5 PPR points. In this game, 12 for 42 on the ground. He didn't catch his target. So in the 2 games against Houston, he had a total of 9.2 fantasy points. I told people to be very concerned about that. I said that the fact that they sold out to stop him and it worked, and they had no fear of the quarterback beating them, they would go back to that well. And I was worried about the injuries on the Houston offensive line, and that got Henry a few more yards than he might have gotten otherwise. But otherwise, that didn't work. Austin Eckler, that was tough. I told people he was boom bust. He was GPP because the easiest matchup he's going to have against Denver, against the run, against the receiving running backs. But I also cautioned. I said, look, with no Keenan Allen, with no Josh Palmer, it's also very possible that Denver just stacks the box and says nobody else can beat us. Well, that's about what happened. Eckler gets 13 carries for 46 yards, so he couldn't even get 3.5 yards of carry, right about there. 1 catch for 4 yards, 2 targets. So there's that. Austin Eckler, bad situation this year. The offensive line didn't run block. He's going to be 29 next year. I didn't fade him this year. I had no shares, but I had him lower than consensus. And when you have a first-round guy lower than consensus, you're not having any shares. And I was nervous. I had been down on him going into last year, and that didn't pan out. He blew it away. But this year, obviously, it came back, unfortunately, for him. Patrick Mahomes, I won't spend much time on him. He has been outside since week 10. He's been outside the top 12 quarterbacks. On the season, he's barely in the top 12. It's just been that year. So basically, we're not questioning him. We're not questioning his talent. Yeah, he didn't play well against the Raiders, played terrible. But look, they're going to have to get some more help around him, and because clearly what they have is not enough. And I do not know how they're going to get him that help with his contract. That's going to be problematic, but I don't know. Ty Chandler was next. Not the worst game in the world. 10 rushes for 40, 2 catches for 13. So he got you, 7.3 PPR points? So not completely horrible. But look, when we look at Ty Chandler, I point out a couple things. I said, first of all, he had that really big game, but his other 2 games were not like Superman games. And also, Chandler, and he obviously struggled against Detroit. We knew that was going to happen. But then when we look back to this week's game, we were like, well, I wondered, is Madison going to get more run? And he did. Alexander Madison got 40% of the snaps. Chandler got 57. So it wasn't that 80-20 we were hoping to get in that first game against Detroit. And so all that said, I was telling people to start better options over Chandler, and I think that did work out. I'm going to mention Jaron Hall quickly. Why would I mention Jaron Hall? Because in 2 quarterback leagues, I was getting questions with him. And what I told people was, I go, look, they were deciding who to start a quarterback, and they didn't know. And he started Jaron Hall. I go, don't be surprised if Jaron Hall has a slow start and gets pulled. exactly what happened. 5 for 10, 67 yards and a pick, and he was done for the day. So hopefully, if you were with me on my shows or you asked, you didn't start him, because I was very concerned that range of outcomes would be there. And then finally, Tyler Lockett. Wow, playing the Steelers. Now, I know he doesn't play a lot of slot anymore. I know that's a lot of Jackson Smith and Jigba's game, but 1 catch for 10 yards on 5 targets. I don't know if I think there's an extra receiver in the offense. He is aging. He's over 30 now, or at 30. I think the fall is here now. I think that is here. He really staved it off for a long time, but right now, not so hot. All right. Anthony Cervino will not be with us today. He has a meeting. I normally do a show on Mondays, but I didn't, and Anthony wasn't able to make it. So unfortunately, but Anthony Cervino will be back with us. We're going to take this show every Monday going forward through the playoffs, through the Super Bowl. We'll even be here the day after Super Bowl going over that game. We will have some off-season shows. We'll talk about that. Anthony, welcome. Glad you're here. And all right, now let's talk about some of the reactions to the big games. Dallas and Detroit. I don't want to spend the whole thing going over the officiating. It's a circus. It's crazy. Dan Campbell went over this exact scenario with the officials before the game, telling them what he was going to do if it came down to this 2-point conversion. And the refs butched it. Now, I will say one thing. The play before the touchdown, there was a blatant trip by Detroit, and the referees didn't call it. So maybe it comes out in the wash, but it's a bad look for the NFL. It's a horrible look to keep getting these big calls wrong on such an important, a 16-game schedule. Every game is so significant to these teams. It's terrible. I don't know that. Look, the games are played by humans. It's ref by humans. But here's the thing. It's like the players are like superhuman, right? Because how many human beings can do what they do? But the officials aren't superhuman. We got some people that, there are other people that could do that job probably. When you're superhuman at your job and you still make mistakes, that's one thing. But now you're not superhuman, and they have billions of dollars of resources. They have people in New York sitting there watching the game for calls. They could make any fixes, and the public would never. The public always argues. The public always complains. But look, ultimately, we have referees. Let them take care of the generalities of the game. But automatically, if there's something that New York sees, they need to fix it. And just make it real easy. If you tell people that going in, New York will fix whatever they see as quickly as possible. I just don't see a world where people are complaining. You'll come out on the wrong side, like always. 50% of the time, you'll be like, "Oh man, if they didn't do that, I get it." It's just horrible. So all that said, it's the consequence of this, right? The Lions were in play for the 1 seed. It's still potentially a home game in another round of the playoffs. This is huge. And it gives Dallas the inside track to winning the division where they may have come in second. So it just horrible with the stakes on the line. We hate seeing that. We want to see football. We want to see the players win the games. We don't want the highlight on the officials. So all that happened. I'll take these comments. You guys are the best. Anthony, blown call must seem intentional. The more that comes out about the trip, probably, yeah. Anthony, it was a judgment call. It's one thing. The fact that it's a process. Yeah, right. The process calls. Those are the ones that you gotta get right. It's not like you're freezing in a moment. There's not an opportunity for that. And then Randy, your Lions fan 68 reported, we're used to this. Oh man, yeah, no doubt. On a side note, I watched the Barry Sanders thing on the Amazon Prime. What a wonderful show. I love Barry Sanders. What a wonderful show. If you didn't watch it on Amazon Prime, watch the show. All right, so Dallas. Since Dallas won, I always talk about the team first. For fantasy. Wow. Dak gets 345 and 2 touchdowns. Again, we kind of expected against Detroit's defense he'd be able to get that done. We talked about Pollard and the Dream Crushers already. We talked about CD Lamb and the week winners. I will say that touchdown pass to Brandon Cooks. Wow, it was a beautiful thing. That was a Brandon Cooks still a great receiver. He's just in a different role right now. Jake Ferguson didn't have a good game, 4 for 33 on 6, but Detroit was good against tight ends. And and somebody had asked me between him and Tucker Kraft. I kind of said coin flip. I kind of thought that it'd be a higher scoring game, the Dallas game. It wasn't, but they were like within a point or two, so nothing there. Now the Lions side. So give Detroit a ton of credit for making that last drive comeback. I just never. I've been watching football since. Over 50 years of watching football since I was a kid, and I've never understood why defenses go to prevent in the last drive of the game. Literally, you just give the team the chance to walk the ball down the field. If it's a 3-score game, all right, I get it. At some point, you can grind the clock out and you're fine. But in a 1-score game, to go prevent and just allow your opponent to walk the ball downfield, I just never understood that. Do what got you to that point. If you blow a coverage and they get a long touchdown, well, guess what? You got time in the clock. You can get back down the field and maybe score. But I just never understand it. Now, back to fantasy. We talked about Jahmyr Gibbs and the Dream Crushers. That holding call, that was tough. We give him a few more yards, but still would have been a rough week. David Montgomery, he gave what he's been. His snaps are in the 36% range again. And what I told you was he's a floor play. And he was 12.5 PPR points. I don't know that you argue at 12.5 PPR points. It's not 20, it's not 30, but it's double digits. And I think that's a fine fantasy game. I just, we always want more, but I think when I told people to start him, I go, he's a safe floor play. He's a double digit. He's had double digits like every week for like 6 straight weeks. There's a value in that in fantasy, right? We always want the 30-point guy, but you can't get that every week. Goff's numbers, not good. 2 picks, touchdown. He did throw for 271. That last drive got him there, which was great. So that was fine. Amon-Ra St. Brown keeps doing his thing. He just keeps coming along. And he'll be a first round. He was a first round pick this year in a lot of drafts. But I think he go in the top 7 or 8 picks this year, unless some running backs get in there somehow. And I don't know that'll happen. Obviously McCaffrey be in the mix, but I think St. Brown was in the top 7 picks this year. And like I said earlier, you got the big 4 and you got CD and I think St. Brown's right there. Now, Garrett Wilson's going to play in this too. If Garrett Wilson has a quarterback next year, again, Garrett Wilson could be, we haven't seen it, right? He could be as good as the big 4. And so if Garrett Wilson has a quarterback, I'm still, like I did this year, I'm going to have Garrett Wilson ahead of St. Brown. It's not me going back to the well. It's literally Garrett Wilson is like a megastar, and he just needs a quarterback. It's like DJ Moore, right? Oh, and that's another one. Oh, man, we'll be talking off season. I don't know how I put St. Brown ahead of DJ Moore, because DJ Moore, man, again, it's always quarterback health, right? But if his quarterback stayed healthy, what would his season have been? It would have been 1,600 yards, right? But St. Brown's right there. St. Brown's right there. I'm not taking any shade on St. Brown. Anyway, and then Laporta. Fortunately, late in the game, he was able to get some catches, gets him to 7 for 84, so he cashed for you, so you're set there. Ravens, Dolphins. Ravens were down, man. They were down like Brandon Stevens, their corner, was out. Kyle Hamilton, because of the knee injury, he was out. The Dolphins had a nice first drive. Game scripted up. We see it all the time. Scripted first drive, down the field, score a touchdown. That was it. They scored 19 points. That was it. The Ravens just hunkered down, said it was over. Before I get to the Ravens, big loss for the Dolphins. Bradley Chubb. They lost Jalen Phillips a few weeks ago to an Achilles. Now they lost Bradley Chubb. That is going to put a big spike into their defense, because the defense, the pass coverage is getting better and better every week since Jalen Ramsey's been back, and then all teams galvanizing under Vic Fangio. But I'm nervous now, because that pass rush was important. Now they lost 2 key cogs. Bradley Chubb was having arguably the best year of his career. I think he had better numbers one year in Denver. He was playing really, really well. Those 2 losses, those are massive, massive losses for Miami. Let's go to the Baltimore. I talked about Lamar Jackson earlier. What a week. Justice Hill. I just don't get it, where this came from, right? He's been ordinary all season, but when Keaton Mitchell was not playing, Hill would often outsnap Edwards. Now in this game, Edwards actually outsnapped him, but Justice Hill was a big play machine. 8 touches, 112 yards and a touchdown. So he ends up with the game. I don't know many started him in fantasy, but if you're in a deeper league, you may have had to have. I know I had him in a start sit question or 2, but it was very hard to recommend him, because Miami had been a really good run defense, and Justice Hill's, in my opinion, is not a very productive player. Gus Edwards got it done too, 68 yards on the ground and a touchdown, so he cashed again. he's been a great revelation. I got him in the 16th round in a lot of drafts this year. I was heavily in him. I thought he would have a role even if J.K. Dobbins played, but because he did when Dobbins was healthy back in the day. Zay Flowers had the 3 catches. One was a 70-yard touchdown, so he goes over 100 in a touchdown, so that works out. We mentioned earlier, likely the 2 touchdowns, but Baltimore, obviously, nothing genius about this call, but clearly the Ravens are going to be a very, very tough out at home in the playoffs. They are the hands-on favorite to represent the AFC to Super Bowl, but we need to see them on a big stage win a big game in the playoffs. Now there's a different team, and they're coaching. The coaching, the defensive coordinator, Mike McDonald, the offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, the head coach, John Harbaugh. That is a trio of coaches, and that team is prepared. And I think that's a great part, in addition to the great talent that are players, that really makes them a fun team to watch. But we're going to remember that Rams game a few weeks ago when the Rams hung 31 on them. It'll be interesting because I always say when you get an offense functioning well in the NFL playoffs, defense are relevant. I don't know that Buffalo they should make the playoffs, not guaranteed to, but they're that team that if they come in and they get that Josh Allen variance game, it could be a problem. But again, Buffalo defensively might struggle. Now, I don't want to spend time on Buffalo. Buffalo got Daquan Jones, their defensive tackle back. He'd been in IR for a long time. It's a big boost to their run defense. Anyway, if the Ravens-Bills play, I'm going to want to watch that. I'll watch them all, but I want to watch that game. Dolphins, look, they beat Dallas last week. I'll give them that. It was at home. They nudged them. Fine. They won. Another big-time team, another road game, another butt-whooping. 56-19. 56-19. Tua throws 2 picks. Post-snap, defense, motion, movement. He can read defense as well. If he can't get the ball out quick, if they take away his first read and gum it up, he's in trouble. I like him. He's a good player. But those are fatal flaws. And especially when you're playing this Mike McDonald defense, I was very worried about it. And he almost had some garbage time yardage. I had the under on his prop at 244. He went 237, so we got that one. But not good. Just not good. And Devon Achane did get it done. He showed that explosiveness, 14 carries for $107. We talked about this, though. We said going into this game, we said that we remember he played that same style of offense with San Francisco. And I know Christian McCaffrey, Superman, but it was not difficult running on the Ravens. Remember, the Ravens play some of the lightest boxes in the league because they're concerned with the pass and at the expense of the run. Now, if they're winning, it doesn't matter, and it didn't matter here. But Achane, 14 for 107, he caught 4 passes for 30 and a touchdown, so he had a great fantasy performance. 137, so some 23 PPR points. Now, not like Superman, but you'll take that every day of the week, right? Otherwise, Tyreek Hill, it was okay. 6 for 76 on 12 targets. You knew the Ravens would have a plan for him. And again, making things muddy for Tua Tagovailoa, that's a big deal there. If you started Cedric Wilson in a pinch, he scored for you, so you're fine. But the Dolphins right now, look, they're at home this week. I'll give them that. But if they don't beat the Bills, they're on the road for the playoffs. If they beat them, they're home for a game. Not looking like a great finish to the season for the Dolphins. Again, with those 2 defensive injuries, like I said, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, those are massive injuries. The offensive line has been beat up. So Dolphins kind of stumbled into the finish line here. We'll see if they can get things right. The Cardinals beat the Eagles 35-31. And here is part of the reason why it can be tough to handicap like fantasy. We talk about game script wise. How many scenarios did we have where the Eagles weren't winning? And like I said, they ran like 46 plays. That was it, like 46, 49 plays. It was terrible. Oh, yeah, Randy, I forgot about the Tyreek bobble. Totally forgot about that. Yes, at the back of the end zone. So many plays in the games. Yes, that bobble, that was like so abnormal to him. I know that was a big one. For fantasy, especially if you had him. That was one that put him well over the 20-point threshold. Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. I forgot that play. How did the Cardinals beat the Eagles? This is what's important. How did they beat them? Ground control. They ran the ball more than they passed it. Connor, 26 carries. Michael Carter, 7. Kyler threw 31 passes. They ran, and they were successful. The linebackers. So we talked about during the season, the corners were not playing at a great level. Darius Slay was out still with the knee scope. The safety play is bad. The linebacker play is not just bad against the pass. It's now becoming alive. If you can get second level runs, it's a real problem. And the Cardinals were able to do that, get second level runs. And so they couldn't stop the run. And so this is a real problem. It's a real problem for the Eagles. I don't know what the Eagles are going to do in the playoffs. Defensively, it's not just scheme, it's players. I was saying in the preseason, they took a big hit to the spine of their defense, the middle. I was very concerned about it. I didn't foresee both Bradbury and Slay having down season. Cornerback play is year to year often for a lot of these guys. But now they can't stop people, and they're struggling to score. They score 31 points. They're struggling to score, but they score 31 points. But it's like empty calories, right? It's like, okay, they were in a shootout, fine. A.J. Brown, 4 for 53. Didn't really get him to 5 targets. All he had 5 targets. Devontae Smith dinged up an ankle, 3 for 30 on 5 targets. Apparently he'll be okay. Julio Jones got the 2 touchdowns. So there's that. Is he 1% owned in fantasy? Maybe. I doubt anybody started him. But if you did, you got the big day out of him. But yeah, not so much. Otherwise, Dallas Goedert was fine, 5 for 47 and a touchdown. But DeAndre Swift only had 13 carries because the game script thought to be 20. That's why the over prop didn't hit. You did not see a world where they'd be playing chase, and they were chasing. So that was that. But the Eagles are in trouble. The Cardinals, great win. They are not going to get a top 2 pick now. They're no longer in the discussion for that. Steelers, Seahawks. Mentioned earlier in the week winners, the Seahawks can't tackle. And Pittsburgh's a physical run team. So there's that. Mason Rudolph only threw 24 passes. Didn't need to throw more. Pittsburgh was either closer in the lead the whole game for the most part. So they were in great shape. They leaned on Harris and Warren, and they cashed. And then George Pickens again. Actually, Pickens and Deontay Johnson did fine. But Pickens for the second game in a row, he had 131 yards on 7 catches. So Mason Rudolph has a little bit of gunslinger in him. And so that lends to Pickens being in a much, much better spot. And they're playing the Ravens this week. You know, Brandon Stevens ain't going to play, and Kyle Hamilton ain't going to play. And they probably will play some starters. I don't know who they'll play and how long they'll play them. But, if you're doing anything in week 18, yeah, there's a good path for Pittsburgh here. It'd be interesting to see how this game goes. I almost wonder if Lamar Jackson's going to play, because John Harbaugh remembers the last time they had home field and they lost early in the playoffs. And I think he was thinking that part of the reason was that they rested players and they weren't, in that same flow. They're already going to have a week off for the bye. So, and then you always factor in the 6 days leading up to a game. I mean, that would be like, weeks off? It'd be a full, so 6 days of the game and others 13. That's over 20 days off. And I don't know if they're going to do that. So anyway, but back to Pittsburgh. They got a great chance to make the playoffs. They'll need help. They have to win, but they got to see who Baltimore plays. If Baltimore plays their players, they still could win. Certainly divisional opponents. They beat them earlier in the season. I'm sure the Ravens weren't happy about that. Seahawks side, they're at home. They had a defense with a bunch of safety injuries. Didn't matter. Linebacker injuries. Didn't matter. Geno Smith put up nice passing numbers, 290, but he only threw a touchdown. Ken Walker, 10 carries, played limited snaps. He wasn't quite 100%. Did okay in his time. DK Metcalf went over 100 yards on 5 catches. It's an okay fantasy game. Smith and Jigba had 1 catch, a 12-yard touchdown. There was that. Outside of that, though, at their home field, now they need the Bears to beat the Packers, and the Seahawks need to win to make the playoffs. Might happen. Probably won't. So that'll be an interesting offseason in Seattle, but they had it right there. They just had to take care of business in their home field, and they couldn't do that. All right, before we get out of here, if anybody has questions or comments, feel free to dump them. I can address them before we get out. Playoff picture in the AFC. We know the Ravens got the 1 seed. Remember, the Dolphins-Bills playing the night game, last game, Sunday Night Football, playing for the division title. Should be great to watch. The Bills smoked them the last time they played. It was in Buffalo. There have been some injuries since for Buffalo. Interesting to see how this game shakes out. Chiefs, I think they're locked in for the 3 seed. I think they're locked in for it. And then, obviously, the Jaguars, the Colts, and the Texans. The Jaguars are playing the Titans. You never know what you're getting from the Titans. They could get them rolling over and stomp them. The Titans could come out like they did against Miami and say, you know what, we're going to win this game. And they could. So then the Colts or the Titans. Now, the Colts or the Texans are in. One of those teams, they're playing each other. One they play, one of them's in. But as to winning the division, the Jaguars are going to have to take care of business. We'll see what happens. Browns locked in. Browns are taking it easy this week, and they had a lot of injuries. They lost some people for the year, but people who had been like nicked up, they need to treat this as a bye week. I don't know what they'll do, but they need to totally treat this as a bye week. The Elijah Moore concussion was apparently really, really bad. He spent the night in the hospital, and he's going to be out a while. I don't know if he'll be back for the playoffs. We'll see. Hopefully he is. Wish him a speedy recovery. But poor man took a very significant head injury. And then, like I said earlier, the Steelers, I think they have a 23% chance of making the playoffs, but the whole thing is they got to win, and then they need help. And we'll see what happens. NFC, as it stands right now, 49ers obviously have the number 1 seed. Now, the game against the Rams is interesting because both teams clinched. And now, I don't know how for the 49ers, obviously McCaffrey's not playing this week. He's not playing. He has a calf injury. He's not playing. He'll get 20 days off to rest up to be ready for the playoffs. Hopefully that's enough, because I want to see everybody at full strength in the playoffs. But the 49ers have a lot of injuries too. They're probably going to rest a lot of nicked up people. Cowboys right now have the 2 seed. We'll see how that shakes out. Eagles are in the 5 and fading fast. Lions are locked in at the 3, it looks like. And then the Buccaneers, they bonked to the Saints. They got to play the Panthers. If they could figure out a way to beat the worst team in the league, they win the South. The Saints have a small window to get in the playoffs too. I think it would probably require the Packers and the Seahawks losing. Maybe my guess. Falcons and the Vikings have minute chances of getting in. All right, everybody. Appreciate you. We'll be back on Friday with Adam Thompson, Saturday with John Ryan, and then I know a lot of you don't have lineups. Sunday we'll do a start-sit show, but that could be if you have questions about the games, if you got DFS questions, player prop questions. If you're in a league, you ask them too, but I'll definitely take questions and interact with you on Sunday. Everybody, thank you for hanging out with me. Happy New Year, and have a wonderful day.